Welcome to Navigating Hope, your compass to health empowerment. I'm Dr. Jaime Hope, steering you through healthcare, overcoming overwhelm, personal goals, and emergencies. We'll navigate the healthcare maze with actionable insights and real-world advice, unlocking the secrets to a healthier, more vibrant life. Join us to take control of your well-being and make informed decisions for your health and your future. Stay with us as we unravel the mysteries of medicine, wellness, and life's unforeseen challenges, helping you bypass the ER with a dose of knowledge. Stay tuned till the end of the episode with a recap of your actionable insights and a free gift. Let's chart a course to your well-being together. Welcome back to another episode of Navigating Hope. I am honored to be joined today by Dr. Merle Griff, who is an expert in intergenerational play and care. And so she has a PhD. She's the founder and CEO of SarahCare Senior Solutions, and her latest book, Solace in the Storm, Caring for Loved Ones of Every Generation, was released in 2023. Dr. Griff, thank you so much for joining us today, because this is just so near and dear to my heart. I love what you do. I'd love you to start by telling us what made you passionate about intergenerational connectivity and caring for people in such a loving and respectful way.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Hope, for inviting me. I appreciate this opportunity. I actually am a psychologist by training that started out working with children. Actually, my age of specialty was 3 to 12-year-olds. So I was a play therapist, and I began involving grandparents into 2 therapeutic techniques that I developed. I found that grandparents were often excluded from changes that were going on in families, and that they needed to be included. They played a very significant role, and they needed to be included in changes that were happening in the family systems. I also had the opportunity to begin to study intergenerational relationships with Dr. Sally Newman at the University of Pittsburgh. And so when I had the opportunity to open up what was called the first shared site in the country, which was a child daycare center and an adult daycare center together in the same building, I was like, yes, I want to do this, because there are lots of opportunities here that have been unexplored, and we need to try to move forward with this.
You know, I agree. And it's so interesting because I've seen the literature on that intergenerational where they brought young children and seniors together and how it significantly benefited everybody. Was there something in particular that sparked that idea to bring them together?
I think it was the environment we were in. I mean, because we had the child daycare center right across, literally, from the adult daycare center, it gave us lots of opportunities. So we did programs called Rock-A-Babies, where actually the seniors could go in if they were physically able to rock the babies in the child daycare center. Interesting enough to me, most of the volunteers for that program were men, not women.
Oh, interesting.
The men said they had never had the opportunity to do that. They had been working hard, and most of them working 2 jobs. So they really wanted to do that. We found that the toddlers did really well with dementia clients. That was the best interaction between them. And the seniors with the preschoolers and the seniors with the school age. I mean, I can tell you that one day I ran into one of the children who had been with us in the intergenerational program. She was now in school. She was in 1st grade. And I saw her and I said, "Hi, how you doing? How do you like your new school?" And she said, "Well, it's okay." And I said, "Oh, Jamie, what's the matter?" And she said, "There are no grandmas or grandpas here." And she said, "I miss the grandmas and the grandpas." So it really means a lot to the children, as well as meaning a lot to the seniors.
Well, and that's incredibly heartwarming because everybody needs connection. In particular, kind of us adults in that middle part, we're busy, right? We're working, we're trying to pay the mortgage, do the thing. But to have people with this incredible lived experiences, love, and so many gifts to give to get to spend time with the young children who need that attention. What an incredible pairing.
I will tell you, it also worked. I was just in Croatia presenting this material on running therapy groups between adolescents, teenagers, and seniors. And we were dealing with teenagers in a locked day treatment unit. So you can tell these were kids with issues, with behavioral issues, all right? Once a week, we brought seniors from our adult day center and some from the nursing home into there. Everyone was interviewed, everyone was screened ahead of time, but they were together for 8 weeks at a time. And I'll tell you one quick story if I can. I tell a lot of stories, sorry. And that is, we had a young woman, you would see her at the beginning, her picture, she has a feeding tube in. She looks very gaunt. She has a feeding tube in. She had been in the children's hospitals. Everyone had been trying to treat her and intervene. Nothing was really working. And this is why she had the feeding tube in. We had paired her with a senior who she decided she didn't want to be with. And so she paired herself with a senior who had a stroke and was paralyzed on one side. And she and let's call this senior Hilda formed an extremely close relationship. When you see this young woman who had this feeding tube in, 4 months later, no feeding tube. She looks healthy. She looks well. She looks unbelievable. What that senior was able to do was what no psychiatrist or psychologist or any of the physicians, with all due respect to all of us, had been able to do. That woman, that senior, in the wheelchair, paralyzed on one side, was able to form a relationship with this young woman, find out what was going on. I ran into Hilda's daughter at one point, and I said to her, I really want to thank you for what your mother did for this young woman. It was unbelievable. And she said to me, you have no idea what this young woman did for my mother. At the end of my mother's life, she felt as though she suddenly had meaning and she was important and she had given back. So it works for both the seniors and for the kids.
It really does. It works so much in both directions because we want love, we want connection, which is really key, and that meaning and purpose. And I agree with you in a psychologist-patient relationship or a physician-patient relationship. There's that kind of necessary but real differential and makes people uncomfortable versus where they have that opportunity to just be humans and just be together. It's just so incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those kind of stories. So we definitely need more. With the work that you do, and you mentioned internationally, so you're driving initiatives specifically around senior care and aging. How do you see the role of adult day services evolving in the future, especially as you know, the population is aging and that need for care is expanding? What are you seeing? And then we'll dive into what would you like to see? The reality and the dream.
So I think the reality is that after COVID, people began to recognize the value of adult daycare centers. First of all, we have RNs and LPNs on duty all day. So the standard of healthcare and healthcare monitoring is at a much higher level because our nurses are there and they're being seen on a daily basis. It's also much less expensive than home care. So it's a higher standard of care for less money, actually. And it allows the family caregiver to either continue working if that's what they need to do, or they need respite. They need to go to their own doctor's appointment. They need to go out to lunch with their friends, which is really important. And so it plays a very, very important role. We like to think, and we know actually, that we're able to keep people from leaving their families and homes and going into a nursing home when they really don't need to do that.
Yeah, and I think because sometimes families feel a little bit overwhelmed with the care needs and trying to balance some people who are in the sandwich generation and have children as well as an ill or elderly family member and work and all that. And what I love about daycare specifically is, as you said, it can keep people out of nursing homes. So what are the challenges that some people face? Nursing homes are very valuable. And what are some of the things that you see with people in a nursing home versus daycare?
What are the challenges? I'm sorry, Dr. Hope, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So in the daycare setting, you said the one of the benefits is that they don't have to leave the home. They can still go home and
Right.
be with their family versus in a nursing home where they don't have that opportunity. And in terms of how they thrive and interact, do you notice a difference?
I notice a big difference. I mean, in the adult day centers, people are more involved still in their communities. So they go out. At SarahCare centers, we're out all the time. So they're going to movies, they're going to museums, they're going to concerts. We have adapted sports programs, adapted golf, adapted fishing, adapted bowling. You want to do it, the day center will do it. And so they live a fuller life and they're more involved in the community. I've owned nursing homes and assisted livings. It's tough. And no matter how high the standard of care is you want, it's still a 24/7 operation. And it's hard to watch a 24/7 operation and make sure everything is at the level you want it to be. It's much easier in a day center. It's also easier to get staff because, our one ads read no evenings, no weekends, no holidays. So it's much, much easier. And the staff are much more involved with the families. They have more direct involvement. So I have nurses, for instance, who tell me this is why I went into nursing to really provide this type of care and to have these kinds of relationships with people. I couldn't do that in the hospital setting or in the nursing home.
That's just lovely because of that opportunity for connection. And what I like about this kind of solution is that, there's some misconceptions that you're supposed to just drop your loved one off and they're just going to be parked in a wheelchair in front of a television all day, which can sometimes happen with home care if there are some limitations, but they're living lives, they're being more social and more active than they would be in so many other environments.
We also try to take care of as many services as possible while they're with us. So for instance, the podiatrist will come into the centers. Many of our centers, SarahCare centers all have roll-in showers. Many other centers do. So we can do bathing, we can do hair, we can do manicures. So when that person returns home, the family, after working all day or doing whatever they're doing all day, does not have to worry about taking them to the hairdresser or bathing them. We have 80-year-old spouses who are taking care of spouses in their 80s. I mean, bathing becomes a really difficult issue. And even if you have an aide, sometimes, there's difficulty getting into the shower, getting in and out of the shower. And so we can take care of a lot of those personal care items while they're with us during the day.
And that's a nice opportunity to free up the family members, particularly if it's a spouse of about the same age, instead of focusing on how do I get them in and out of a shower that's not designed for an elder, right? So when they are at home together, they get to focus on connection and family and not the routine chores of caregiving.
Right. Absolutely.
And so in your book, Solace of the Storm, you've got some practical guidance for families around caregiving challenges. And many of the audience here are caregivers. So what kind of things do you help guide them with so they can navigate those caregiving challenges?
Well, the reason for writing the book was I wanted to give people things they could do to relieve their stress and to refuel if they only had 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. I mean, part of the problem I had as a family caregiver was everything I was reading either didn't make sense to me. I mean, if I had one more person tell me I should own the problem, I mean, like, fine, now I own it. Now what do I do with it? I mean, I need a solution, all right? Or it was something that was going to take me an hour a day. I didn't have an hour a day as a family caregiver to meditate or do whatever. And, I didn't have $1,000 to join a gym. So what I needed was something I could do in 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. And that's what the book is really filled with. Those types of easy to integrate into your daily life kind of solutions. So I'll tell family caregivers, look, if your family member loves to watch I Love Lucy reruns, don't use that time to fold laundry and be busy doing other things. Take a break, sit down with them, watch the show, have some laughs together, enjoy that time together. We tend to always want to be productive. And so if our family member is occupied, whether it's a child or a senior doing something, we're doing work. No, no, no. Sit down. Take 10 minutes. It's not going to hurt you. The laundry, I guarantee you, will still be there. So will the dishes. They're not going anywhere. All right. And then there's simple things like walking outside just for a few minutes and breathing. I like to keep aromatherapy oils in the bathroom because, as I say, where is the one place in the house you can go to that people don't follow you usually? It's usually in the bathroom. So walk in, just kind of breathe, take a little aromatherapy moment, and just sit down and just relax for a few minutes. Sometimes just 5 minutes can make all the difference in the world.
And that's why what you wrote in the book is so important, because we do tend to be given very unrealistic expectations, right? If I had to spend an hour a day meditating, an hour a day doing yoga, an hour a day exercising, an hour a day meal prep, these self-care things we're supposed to do add up to many more hours in the day that we have. And you give people permission to be real and to find those places and moments that you can just be present and enjoy in a practical way that us mere mortals can actually achieve.
Right. I mean, if I'm a big reader, so, I used to love to sit down and just read. Well, in taking care of my mother and then taking care of my husband, I didn't have that time anymore. So I began to, just say, okay, fine. I can't sit down and read 50 pages or 80 pages, but I could read 5 pages or I could read a part of a chapter, and that's okay. All right. Because at least that was relaxing and I had a little bit of time to refuel and recover. So people have to find those bits of times and be satisfied with them.
Okay, so you were sharing the experience in terms of caregiving for your mother, and your children were involved in this as well. And I was wondering how those shared experiences shaped your children's experience of caregiving and how that affected your family.
I mean, there were periods that were wonderful, like when we were able to take my mother to buy my daughter-in-law's engagement ring, and she was able to be a part of that because she was living with us. There were times it was very difficult. She had a feeding tube in, she was aphasic, so she couldn't speak. She was paralyzed on one side. I had a lot to learn. I'm a gerontologist, and I still had a lot to learn. But one of the things I realized is that the best way to teach your children empathy is to model it. That's really how they learn it. And I hadn't really thought about it until one of my sons said something to me about, Mom, I'm watching you and Dad take care of Mom. And I realize how important that is. And I promise you, I would take care of you also. Not that I expect him to do that, but they learned that empathy by watching it. People don't realize that the way you treat your own parents is your children are watching and they're learning. And that's how they learn empathy and resilience.
So, Dr. Griff, a lot of people, we've talked about caregivers and family members. What about those of us who have a friend who is so we're not the primary caregiver, but our friend is caregiving or one of our family members is caregiving? What are some ways that we can help figure out how to support them?
I think the quickest and easiest way and the way that's most meaningful is to give them a compliment. You'd be surprised how many family caregivers feel very isolated and lonely. They're working hard, and no one says to them, wow, you are doing an amazing job. I could never do what you're doing. All right. Or send them a card, that says, wow, you're really terrific. Or a little plant, just that little something that lets people know you care about them, you're out there, they think you're amazing, really just means a lot.
I'm so glad you said that because we see that in the emergency department. So I see family members coming in with their patients, and anytime the patient is clearly well taken care of, clean, like doing we always, well, not all of us, but many of us stop and take the time to compliment the family caregiver. Wow, what an amazing job you're doing. And we know how challenging this is. There's no decube ulcer because we see the opposite. So I know what that comparison is too. So,
Right.
so I'm
I,
so glad that you said that.
I think that's really important. And it is especially important for family members who are not the primary caregiver. People, especially when they come to visit, we're coming up to holidays now, they tend to come in and, they're kind of shocked sometimes by what they see in terms of how someone's deteriorated or they've gotten more ill. And they express that shock by being critical. And
Mm.
so the first thing out of their mouth is, well, why are you doing that? And why isn't mom this? And why isn't dad that? And that's so frustrating to a family caregiver who's already exhausted and trying to do the best they can do. And it doesn't open the door to communication about what's going on. And so I tell people when you walk in, find something positive to say. There's always something positive to say. Mom's looking great. Gee, dad looks like he's eating well. I know all those calls to the doctors take tremendous amount of time and you're doing such a great job. Then you can get into other issues if you need to, but that at least opens the door and keeps the door open for communication.
Wow, I love it. And I love the practical, straightforward. These are things that we could do today.
Mhm.
And I love that about your approach.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I've been in this situation many times, as we've talked about. And so all these complex, look, I'm a therapist, so I guess I shouldn't say that. But even as a therapist, I like those simple, concrete things that I can do easily, in addition to the more abstract, more complex solutions to problems.
Well, fantastic. And another issue for those of us who are caregivers, some of us have a difficult time accepting help or asking for help. And you've got some practical tips to support that as well.
I advise caregivers to do two things. Number one, make a list, because then you're prepared. Those little tasks that eat up a lot of time, returning the children's books to the library, returning something you bought at a store, picking something up that you ordered, making your Amazon return, whatever it is, all right? Put it on a list. So when someone says, how can I help? You can say, are you willing to do this or that? And in that way, it's very helpful to you and gives that person some way that they can really help. It's that they understand and can follow through on.
Yeah, because people want to help and they're not sure what to do. I've had loved ones who get diagnosed with cancer, and everybody kind of rushes to their side and says, how can I help? How can I help? But that can leave them in a position of trying to deal with their own mortality and fears, and then also trying to think of something. So by organizing, what are tasks that I could actually get done?
I mean, the other thing is to think through what skills or talents does someone else have. I was talking to a woman recently whose husband has dementia, and we were talking about her adult children, and she was saying that her daughter lives in town, has been very helpful, but her son lives on the West Coast of the country, and he's very frustrated because he really wants to help, but he has a family, he has a full-time job. It's really, really difficult for him. And he's trying to help, but he really can't. And I said to her, what does he do? And she said, oh, well, he's an accountant. And I said, really? I said, we're last week were we just talking about how your husband always took care of all the finances and you were really struggling with all of these financial issues? And she said, yes. And I said, really, would you want him to help? Would that be okay with you? And she said, well, I didn't want to bother him because he has a family and a life. And I said, yes, but he wants to be involved. He wants to feel as though he's being helpful. And so she ended up calling him and saying to him, could you help me with these financial issues? And he was thrilled to be able to help and to be able to feel as though he was contributing to the family.
That's beautiful. It is hard if the loved one that is needs the care is far away from you. I think that's a common struggle.
Yes, yes, very common. Yeah.
So, well, Dr. Griff, any last words of wisdom for us? This is a complex topic. We've talked about caregiving and stories and intergenerational connections. Anything any last take-home tip that we can use?
I guess just to be aware of your own self-talk. It's not necessarily the situation that happens, but how you perceive it and how you explain it to yourself. If the self-talk and the way that you speak to yourself about a situation is always negative, then you're never going to get out of that situation. It's always going to be negative, and you're going to feel overwhelmed and overburdened by that. So you really have to work hard at trying to find some of the positives things to be grateful for, and to monitor your own self-talk so that it's more positive and really is helpful to yourself.
Yes, and that repeated habit over and over makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I know a lot of people are going to want to find you, learn more about what you do. What is the best place for our listeners to connect with you?
Really two ways. One is either through my email at mgriff@SarahCare, SarahCare.com, or through the website for my book, Solace in the Storm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll put all of your contact information in the show notes so people can find you. Thank you again for making the world a better place for caregivers and their loved ones.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate all your work too. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Navigating Hope. Before we dive into the key takeaways, I want to share an essential free resource. This is a gift for you, for caregivers and their families. It is Red Flags, Green Flags, a really helpful tool for finding and evaluating healthcare providers and facilities so you can get optimal care. So this guide helps you identify trustworthy providers to ensure that you and your loved ones receive the highest quality of care. So click on the link in the show notes, download your free copy today, and come over to familycaregiverhope.com. We have a variety of courses and resources for anyone who is caregiving for a loved one. Now let's dive into those key takeaways from our conversation with Dr. Merle Griff, psychologist, gerontologist, and founder of SarahCare Senior Solutions. So here are your 5 key takeaways. Number 1, the power of intergenerational connections. Dr. Griff highlighted the transformative impact of intergenerational relationships. Her programs, like pairing seniors with young children in shared care settings, foster connection, empathy, and that sense of purpose. So it benefits both the young and the elderly. Number 2, adult daycare as a holistic solution. Adult daycare centers, like those pioneered by Dr. Griff, provide a cost-effective alternative to nursing homes. These centers offer medical oversight, personalized activity, and an opportunity for seniors to stay engaged in their community while giving family caregivers some much-needed respite. Number 3, balancing caregiving with family life. Sharing her personal experience, Dr. Griff emphasized the importance of modeling empathy for children during caregiving. Involving her own children in her caregiving journey taught them compassion and resilience. It demonstrates the profound impact that caregiving can have on family dynamics. Number 4, practical strategies for caregivers. In her book, Solace in the Storm, Dr. Griff offers practical advice to help caregivers navigate daily stress. She advocates for small, manageable self-care practices like taking a brief walk, enjoying aromatherapy, or simply sitting with a loved one and find that shared moment of joy. And number 5, empowering seniors and families through adapted activities, personal care services, and a focus on maintaining dignity. Dr. Griff's approach ensures seniors remain active and engaged while alleviating that caregiving burden on families. These solutions foster a better quality of life for everyone involved. Thank you, Dr. Griff, for these incredible insights. Remember, caregiving is a journey that requires compassion, including self-compassion, connection, and support. So stay hopeful, stay determined, and as always, keep navigating your journey with hope. Thank you for tuning into Navigating Hope with me, Dr. Jaime Hope. It has been an honor to navigate the realms of health and wellness with you today. Remember, in the journey toward a healthier life, knowledge is your compass. If you enjoyed our time together, please share, like, and subscribe to Navigating Hope. Join us next week where we'll continue to empower your health journey, arming you with the wisdom to navigate life's challenges and keep the emergency room in your rearview mirror.